Barefoot Cavalry, barefootcavalry.com. They've been saying Yahoo in Arkansas for a long time. October 5, 2016 by Yojak454. After the cell phone and wireless technology explosion following the breakup of AT&T took the stock market by storm, the politicians of the 1980s made trades on their inside knowledge, trades that would have put anyone else in prison. Fabulous wealth was realized during the dot-com bubble. It's funny how this investment could escape segments of our population who had absolutely no idea where its value came from. It wasn't there, it was there. It was in the Ethernet. Many would be shocked to learn that little old Arkansas is a big player in internet technology. Not a recognized startup in the dot-com experience, but rather the masters of a most serious and deadly con game. To better understand high-tech Arkansas requires looking at Jackson Stevens, who was Jimmy Carter's roommate at Annapolis, although Stevens was never commissioned in the Navy. Mr. Stevens has the distinction of being the chief domestic campaign contributor to both George Bush, 41, and Bill Clinton, 42. And that's an old one, too. Stevens is like another political figure in America who never was commissioned or had any connection to the service, but factored heavily with the Naval Academy, Thomas Ludwig John D'Alessandro Jr., a former mayor of Baltimore, Nancy Pelosi's father. This signifies Naval Intelligence, NSA. It could be suggested that Jackson Stevens was the American model of George Soros. Instead of pulling gold teeth, he rode the coat. Somehow it's all connected to dentistry. There are a lot of people working for the same circle. Charles D. Ward was the founder of Demographics, which went on to become Axiom, headquartered in Little Rock, Arkansas. The collection and mapping of consumer data on a scale which can only be described as a profitable dry run of the NSA's storage facility recently completed in Utah. Jackson Stevens had founded Beverly Enterprise, and he had taken Walmart public a year later in 1969. America began to suffer economically and politically as the Vietnam War was winding down. The Central Intelligence Agency had run a psyop on Americans called Watergate, paving the way for a counterculture peanut farmer president and his Peace Corps mother. Jackson Stevens began hurting for cash by 1979 due to investments that turned out to be a money pit in the Carter economy. Stevens was forced to partner in America with an Indonesian business partner he had in Hong Kong, where Stevens Finance Ltd. Had been formed in 1976. Hong Kong and its banking are pivotal in the heroin trade and the laundering of its money. The Indonesian business partner, Mokhtar Riyadi, born in 1923 in East Java, Indonesia, a bicycle repairman by trade before he founded the Lippo Group in 1950. After moving to Jakarta, Bank Lippo and Lippo Group built a real estate empire in Indonesia, a country that figures prominently in subversive behavior towards America. Ethnic Chinese throughout Southeast Asia are a hotbed for spying by Red China. The sitting U.S. president was a child in Indonesia, as well as his first Treasury Secretary, Geithner. Barack Obama's mother worked for Timothy Geithner's father, processing microloans for the Ford Foundation in Indonesia. The Ford Foundation could possibly have been Lippo Group's seed money. Microloans are still in vogue throughout the world. The Riyadi family are ethnic Chinese Indonesians. The ties to Chinese intelligence are more than obvious when you link the banking and political donations into American politics, which eventually produced a president of the United States. Jackson Stevens and the Riyadi family sought to set up a money laundering operation in Arkansas in 1979, just prior to Barry Seal moving his drug importation ring from Louisiana to Mena, Arkansas. Worthen Bank in Little Rock had a shareholder in Midland, Texas. The John H. Hendricks Corporation, an oil business. Jackson Stevens purchased from John H. Hendricks Corporation 9.3% of Worthen stock, and Lippo paid $16 million to the Midland, Texas firm for its share, which was 9.4%. Stevens and Lippo eventually became joint owners of 37% of Worthen stock. James Riotti had interned at the Stevens off Wall Street investment bank in Little Rock. Mercedes McCambridge's son also worked for Stevens and was purported to have committed suicide after he killed his wife and children in a state run by Bill Clinton. Jackson Stevens Bank was the largest off-Wall Street bank and was also a clearing firm for brokerage trades for around 200 banks. Not only were the Stevens involved in MENA, but they were involved in Florida's Venice Airport as well. After the initial investment in Worthen, James Riotti was installed as bank director in Little Rock in 1984. Now that the money laundering operation was underway, Mokhtar Riotti and Stevens purchased Sangheng Bank in Macau. Macau is 40 miles from Hong Kong, the center of heroin trade. Note, the Treasury Bank of Macau, Banco Nacional Ultramarino, used Systematics software. A backdoor was engineered supposedly with and for the NSA. Money would just drop out of the bottom. Critical to the laundering in Arkansas, Systematics software was in place covering political connections in Washington, D.C., Little Rock, Arkansas, and Panama. The intellectual property of the banking transaction software system was developed through Wackenhut Corporation in conjunction with the Cabazon Indian Reservation. Jackson Stevens' involvement with Nugan Hand Bank was known. He was instrumental with his Annapolis roommate's right-hand man, Bert Lance, in BCCI's entrance into American banking. Stevens Lippo went on to set up shop in Little Rock with Worthen Bank. This is how Lippo introduced John Huang into Little Rock, bringing a slew of Chinese donors to the Clinton campaign of 1992. Offshore campaign fundraising introduced by the money launderers and drug dealers in Arkansas Mafia. After a special prosecutor began investigating campaign donations linked to Chinese intelligence services, a situation evolved which led to the death of Ron Brown for knowing too much, as he was unwilling to take the fall or allow his son to do so for Bill Clinton. This is high-tech redneck money laundering, campaign financing, which has never been addressed by the law. And why should it? It's just so profitable. Every dollar that came from overseas could have ultimately been the result of a drug deal. All avenues of drug running lead back to Arkansas, a very rich little state, loser in so many categories: education, poverty, health, but untouchable in drug trafficking and money laundering, none of which could have been accomplished without the governor and the Rose Law Firm. The political cloud that settled over Washington, D.C. in January 1993 was for the enrichment of a few. The greedy politicians dismantled America to serve it up to our enemies through a crony system speckled with nepotism, campaign contributions by foreign intelligence agencies, and profits from drugs. Democrats and Republicans are both responsible. Money, power, influence, not America, is all they care for. Yahoo handed all the email data over to the government. Does it make you wonder why they need all this data? The only possible reason: your life will be given a thumbs up or a thumbs down. In any case, it'll be a thumb up your ass if you do nothing about it. We have lost our next war without even fighting it, and we are being baked with an apple in our mouth by the Democrats and Republicans today. If this election does not produce a RICO investigation after a Trump victory, we cannot expect them to go away. We have to retake our nation and make these people pay.